as a CHRO, to all of the CHROs and talent leaders, in your audience, my message is quite simple. This change is coming. This is going to happen. It is not so hard. Please take, steps and time to experiment with the new technology and the companies, that are coming up. That experimentation is low cost. If you look at you have $200,000 for a loaded cost of a recruiter or whatever else you pay. So if you're spending $100,000 to experiment, you will learn so much in the context of your own company, not on somebody else's experience. Your company is unique, and you can learn in the context. And then when the CEO comes knocking at your door to say, hey, Chris, what are you doing, about AI? We want to see. You can say, we tried. Here is the experiments. Here are the results. Here is how we're going to do it differently.
Anoop, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. Excited to be partnering with you, Chris.
I know, and we got to bump into each other at HR Tech.
Yes, that was cool.
I know.
And I caught you slacking off and putting a lot of food in your mouth.
You mean stuffing it in my mouth between podcasts? Yeah, yes. I feel like it's the first time I've ever been to Vegas and lost weight because I was too busy on the show floor walking around. I think one of our team members, JC, who's actually producing, I think he done like 40,000 steps in one day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Meeting between the rooms and the floor show.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's a lot.
That's a lot of stuff. Before we jump in, you have such an interesting background and career. Could you give everyone a bit of an insight into your background and journey to where we are now?
Sure. So I'm a geek and an entrepreneur. Chris. So I came to the country in 1980. I went to Carnegie Mellon for my PhD. I was lucky. Then I was a professor at Stanford for 11 years. And at the birth of the internet, actually in 95, I did my first startup, which was on streaming media, which we is doing now. And it used to be 56K modems. And so that was really exciting. And that company, VXstream, got bought by Microsoft in 1997. And I spent 18 years at Microsoft in a variety of roles. I was at Microsoft Research. I directly reported to Bill Gates as this technology advisor. I ran the Skype and Exchange businesses, which is Teams now. I led global technology policy for the company, emerging markets, education. So a large variety of things. Which really gave me a perspective, even with Bill Gates, what is the core problem? What's the core bottleneck? How do you focus on that, as we see with talent? Mm-hmm. And then, in 2015 late, found a co-founder and we spun out again and we did something else, but pivoted to talent. And here we are, 8 years later.
Wow. So you're telling me that, because I did the first few hundred episodes of the podcast on Skype, and so that was your team?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So when the audio and video didn't match the voice, I could blame you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you can.
I'm only joking. Wow, what an incredible journey to where we are now. And obviously we're your co-founder and CEO at SeekOut. So give on a bit, people that may be not aware of the business, give them a bit of an overview and background.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to add to the background was that my PhD was in artificial intelligence and high-speed implementations of that. So, been familiar at Stanford, Andrew Ng and all the people, they were colleagues that are there and at Microsoft. So, AI is not something new. Of course, the latest, transformer technology, it has surprised everyone. Mm-hmm. But come from a deep perspective, on what is to be done there. So the interesting place we find ourselves today, Chris, is, for the last 8 years, we had built a talent acquisition tool, that is used by Microsofts and Amazons and, all of the tech companies, that is used by the defense companies, the pharma companies, to source and find candidates and engage with candidates to make hire. But it was a tool that got put in the hands of the recruiters. Okay. With the new revolution that's happening with AI and AI agents is an exciting time where you can take a lot of the repetitive and boring work that goes into recruiting, you know, source all the candidates, research all the candidates, message all the candidates, screen all the candidates. A lot of that part AI agents can do faster, more efficiently, in many cases with better quality. And what the human recruiters are still needed and a very important role is the human part, uniquely human. How do you talk to the hiring manager? How do you understand the nuances? How do you be an expert and tell them, you know, what is workable or not, and what do the talent pools look like? And then, interfacing with the candidates and relationships with the candidates, selling them. So that's the new world. So I feel I've been part of two revolutions when the internet happened and now when the AI is happening.
That's incredible. I mean, what as someone who's been so close to this from the very, for many, many years, what was the maybe biggest surprise to you? Did you see this coming where we are now, or could you never imagine where we are
I
now?
I could have I don't think anybody imagines. One of the guys who got the Nobel Prize was Jeff Hinton,
Yeah.
who did the LLMs. So he used to be a professor at Carnegie Mellon when I was a student there, and he was working on something called the Boltzmann machine. Anyway, what people did not realize is how far and what it could do. And that is why, he resigned from Google. He said, I'm afraid of what Gen AI might be able to do and what it means for humanity and jobs and everything else. So it was quite unanticipated by the founders
Mm,
of this movement.
yeah. You mentioned it a little bit, but what does this mean in terms of what role will AI agents play versus the human recruiters? Because now the lines are
So,
being blurred.
yes. So, I'll actually start broadly and why this is so relevant for CHROs and VPs of TAs. In 5 years, okay, there will be AI agents and humans and companies. AI agents might be doing a lot of role, 50% of what people do, maybe. And the roles are going to get redefined. And the CHROs need to be thinking about, what is the redefinition of the roles? What are the new things, that people are going to do and the agents are going to do? As I talk to some of the CHROs are the leading companies, that is on their mind. But at the same time, they're looking inward and saying, how is the HR organization going to change? Right at HR Tech, we had the CHRO of IBM talking about how they redefined the roles of the HRBPs and
Yes.
how the net promoter score went for negative to plus 75 and the change, so they're delivering better. I similarly think for talent acquisition, things are going to change, right? The roles are going to change. We are going to have leaner, I believe, talent acquisition organizations that where the humans, the recruiters are being talent advisors.
Mm.
Really, as I said, interfacing to the hiring managers and really understanding the nuances of the roles, the whys and the whats and preferences, and similarly, with the candidates, going there and selling to them, building relationships with them, saying why it matters. So that's going to be the difference because 70+% of the job that a recruiter does today the boring part, we might say, but really important, critical,
Important but
repetitive part.
administrative. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, AI agents are going to do.
Yeah. Are we already there right now? Is that, or are we? Is that, or are we a couple of years away from that, or we're already there?
I believe we are already there, and what we are doing at SeekOut Spot uh, can already show you how that part happens. That said, we are still in a learning environment, Chris. So what I'll say is, it is, this whole notion of forward deployed engineers, and there is a lot of nuance and processes to what TA organizations do today, how they interface to hiring managers, when do you submit something to them. And so there's a lot of process there. And then, if you're dealing with inbound candidates, you have to say, here's the compliance. How did the human review? What was the process? Have you kept the logs and the tracking the records so that, when somebody comes, you can answer the questions?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those things are coming through and we are learning. And there is a certain amount of hesitancy from organizations, how to jump in, how to start, how do we dip our toes? And, that is where I would encourage really every CHRO, every TA leader to start dipping their toes
Yeah.
into it
I can
because the
imagine
change.
also there's some fear, right? Like when you're chatting with TA teams, is there some fear there that they're going to be replaced in those conversations?
I think there is a fear there about the teams, but I think there's also excitement.
Hmm.
That there is excitement and what can be done. If my people don't have to do all the boring stuff and they can do
Yeah.
the really important stuff. So I think there is genuine excitement because I think it's a win. It is a win for the recruiters because they're not doing the junky stuff, and many of them
Hmm.
are not fond of it, not good at it, and they can say, I can focus on the things that I really care. It's amazing for candidates. Today, for candidates, the people who are applying, it feels like a black hole. I
Yeah.
send my application, I'm one of the thousand, I never hear back. Eh, I feel unqualified. They're bogus ones too, but they're good ones who are qualified. And
Yeah.
they want to say, I want to hear back. With AI, we can get back to everyone. We
Mm.
can have a screening and a conversation with everyone. So, the candidates win, and there is a reaction. And those who don't care about an AI applied it, they won't respond. So, they don't care anyway. The organization wins because there are so many hidden gems,
Yeah.
amongst the applicants and things and what you can do. So the organization wins, the recruiters, win and doing what they love and what is uniquely human, and the candidates win.
Yeah. I mean, that was my next question. What is the biggest win that this is going to provide for the candidate experience? I think you kind of answered it already, like
Yeah.
bringing back the human into the loop and focusing
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
conversations.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
to do that and to be able to do that at much larger scale than we do. And I'll tell you another story, Chris. I just, you know, so let's say you're trying to, everybody's trying to hire people with AI skills and things like that. The people who are the best, they don't bother updating their LinkedIn profiles. They are visible. So almost 80% of the interesting set of people are not visible when you just look at their profiles. So what you have to do is, even when the person has the potential and looks interesting, you want to have a conversation. You want to get this CV. You want to have conversation to discover that they're really good and maybe you can attract them to the company. So it becomes really important we get beyond the
Mm.
LinkedIn resumes in some sense, LinkedIn profiles, and go deeper with people and with a wider set of people to
Yeah.
deliver success.
That's really interesting. I mean, it's always interesting because it feels like we've gone full circle back to how we started. Like
Yeah.
in terms of the human conversation, that's how I was interviewed. That's how, when I first started 20 years ago, we lost a bit of that. We went too down the technology route, and now we're kind of technology is now freeing us up to kind of to have those conversations, to have more meaningful connections.
So I want to clarify one part. So I think the conversations, humans is important, but AI conversations and exploration is important too. Because, as a human, if you have 100 conversations and each is half an hour or
Yeah,
whatever,
it's not scale.
your time goes away. But AI can have meaningful conversations, not perfect, but it can have meaningful conversations. You can make sure that you're consistent. AI is less biased, and you need to do the bias audits and everything else because the AI, when you see a transcript, it doesn't care about what my accent was. It doesn't care about what I look like in trying to determine. So
Mm-hmm.
there are many advantages of looping in AI into the loop. It gives you the flexibility of when you do the interview or the screening or anything like that. So you can do it at midnight if that's what's your preference and when you have time available. So we got to look at them as a whole,
Yeah.
make sure that we are taking caution in not introducing bias but also leveraging the strengths that the modern systems bring.
Mm-hmm. One of the big challenges I hear every day from the CHROs and TA teams that I chat to is that they're overwhelmed with so many providers in this space that are now all trying to sell them their new AI agents and solutions. What questions should they be asking to make sure that the companies, whether it's yours or others, that it's the right fit for them? Because they're just overwhelmed. We were both at HR Tech. There was like 50 companies claiming to be the next best thing, right? To solve all of your problems. As someone who's doing this work every day with customers, what questions should our audience be asking themselves, but also providers to make sure there's the right fit?
Yeah. So my so one is there are agentic AIs coming in two forms. One is if I'm providing you with a tool, LinkedIn says, hey, we provide you an AI, uh, hiring agent.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to say, what are the things that are going to enhance my people? So a lot of people who come under agentic AI are what we call our copilots. Okay, so they're like the GitHub Copilot, the Microsoft Office 365 Copilot. There, the general thing is, you're saying, how do I make your people more productive? 10%, 20%, 30%, and things like that. The other is, more these agentic AI services in some sense, and then you say, hey, the improvement can be 200%, not 20%. It can be 300%, 500%. The number of players who are looking at that in an end-to-end is much less. So I think people should, we are one of the very few who are looking at it end to end. But that's some of the things that the TA organizations have to do, and they ask who else has done it and how you tried. Because what happened with Paradox and things, the agentic AI on the frontline worker side has already taken off in terms of the savings and everything else. And the question is, what happened? So, look at the pedigree, look at the product, look at the customers. I think that's the best thing because in today's marketing world, everybody claims
Yeah.
everything.
And that's the problem, right? Um, how long does something like this take to deploy within an organization?
So I'll give two answers. The simple is, getting it into an organization is easy. Uh, you know, so you have to connect to the applicant tracking system. That part is easy in the kind of, delivery that we are trying to do. Learning the culture and the nuances, can take 2 to 3 months before you start becoming fully productive. For example, one of the organizations we are working with, they have a whole cultural criteria on it. that they have to love the company. And they have dealt a lot with the inbound candidates who love it. And that was the screening criteria. Our people would send them candidates who are very qualified candidates, but because they were outbound, there was no guarantee that they're going to love you. You got to sell to them and not just
Okay.
expect that they're going to love you, right? We didn't find out until quite a bit down the road. Or they, in some sense, trusted only a certain set of companies if you found a qualified person outside of those companies. So there are a lot of processes that
Mm.
are there, and that can be, 3 months time frame. So I think pilots should be 3 months to 6 months is what you should do
Oh, okay.
before
That's a good
you
piece of
before
advice.
you really expect,
Mm.
the transformation to show up.
And within, say, if you rolled out 3 months, what measurements are you looking at of what success looks like? How do you measure success?
So the success metrics, are the way. So you say, we submitted some candidates, and this is empowering to the recruiters. How
Hmm.
many were accepted by the hiring manager? How many accepted, the ratio accepted from the hiring manager went to a full loop? How many got offers? And then, how many hires? I mean, that's the ultimate metric, but there is a lot of gap, in the company. Why you get a hire or something, we can't control, but there's a lot of, what's your brand, what's your thing. So there are
Sure.
many factors, but these pipeline metrics that you can have of the major stages, you know,
Hmm.
uh, it means those are some of the metrics, that one should look at.
Would one be time to hire?
Oh, the time to hire is certainly, one of them. So, how quickly you're
Yeah.
moving, yeah, through these metrics, because both speed and quality. I guess I was focusing on the quality and
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the
No, no, it's
speed.
fine. Yeah, I think it has to
Yeah,
be a combination,
yeah,
right, of both. And I think that's a big challenge because you probably heard this within your community that now companies are having another challenge where their ATS is it's make it so easy for a candidate to apply that they're getting thousands of applications, right?
yes, yeah,
Sometimes the same candidate applying for 10 jobs in the same company.
yes.
Are you seeing that as well? It's something I'm hearing from
Oh,
our community.
absolutely. Absolutely. We are seeing that. So, that's where AI and what we are doing with agentic AI really helps. So, so I'll tell you, and there are legal compliance in EU, in New York, in Colorado, California, all those kinds of things, and how do you handle it? So here's the process that we are using and recommending to our customers. So you get 1,000 applicants. We have a rubric and the AI can go through in all the rubric, in 2 hours and say, here are the top 10 candidates. You hand them to the recruiter and you say the very same day, and you message you very same day, talk to them. Don't lose them. Speed is important. They feel good when you get back to them quickly. The remaining 990, we all send them a screening questions. There's a form-based screening. Do you have the right visa, salary good, location, and back to office good? And then we also say, here, take some screening questions. What happens is 900 of them don't even bother taking them. So the unqualified you filter out very easily. But the important part is you gave them a chance.
Yes.
So
Okay.
from the compliance and legal, you said you got the same chance as everybody else. You didn't respond within a 2 week window, and that's for real disposition. The 90 who do take the test and complete, it is not so hard for the recruiter to screen them because they have been scored. You know the answers. You this thing, thumbs up, thumbs down, and you and you can find some real gems out there. So I believe you can solve the 1,000 applicant problem. And then actually one of the things, again, where the systems become very important, Chris, is every company has different rules on when you can re-engage. Some have a thing that, if you were rejected in the last 6 months, we shall not consider you. They might even look at the reason. So when you design the systems and the workflows, those details matter. Okay. And, and you can take care of them.
And you're designing that on a custom by customer basis to be bespoke to them.
The logic of when you
Yes.
can, who you can reach out to is customer basis, and the platform allows you to do that.
Hmm.
Okay. But the general notion, of how we do. And then when you do all of this, you keep data and logs and transactions of everyone. If somebody who was rejected comes out to you and says, "Hey, I think your AI rejected me." And then you said, "No, there was a human involved in every decision. And if you didn't reply, in 2 weeks that were given to you, then it's up to you."
Love that. That's so important, right? Because we're not going to
Yeah.
mention names, but we've seen many companies get in trouble
It's,
for this recently, right? It's made headlines.
yeah.
Well, I want to go flip in a different direction for a second. Um, what does this mean for people in their who are young folk in their earlier in their careers? In terms of we're in the age of AI, AGI.
Yes.
What is we don't really know what the future of jobs looks like. The work itself is changing. What does this mean for a young someone just entering the workforce? What advice would you give to them? Because it's kind of like the Wild West.
Yeah, no,
uh,
it is the Wild West. And we know lots of things are going to change, but we don't know exactly what's going to be and what the reality is going to be. So, it is a deep question for what major should I take in
yeah.
college?
Hmm.
Well, what should I do? So the best that I am hearing is that there are two kinds of attributes. One is ability to learn, being curious, being experimenting. Those are all very important things, right? Because if you don't know what's going to be, you got to have flexibility to go wherever you are. Areas that teach you certain kinds of such skills. Okay, there is a work that got done, and why computer science even is relevant in many ways is what's called computational thinking. Okay, the whole focus of that, it's not about coding. It is when you look at a problem, can you break it into smaller problems?
Mm.
Can you take the smaller problems and say what the interfaces ought to be so you can build layers on top of each other? Can you say, how are you going to test a solution for robustness and think about that? So any problem what are the right abstractions to use? So Chris, it's very, very fundamental because those things in our world of vibe coding and everything else, if you can't think logically, if you can't break it apart and you can say, you do this and I'll do this, and here is the clean way we're going to separate. So I believe such skills are really, really important. So two sides. Curiosity, ability to learn, open-mindedness, dealing with ambiguity, going with the flow is one dimension, and there is a lot of ways to learn it. The second is there are some logical ways in which we process things, we build systems, we do. And without knowing computers, computer science is a good way because that's what we taught them, teach you in terms of efficiency, but in very language specific way. There are many of these abstract concepts that are so highly relevant to
Hmm.
everyone.
I completely agree with you, but I think it's pretty worrying, right? Because our current education system doesn't operate that way. It rewards the ability to memorize an answer and write
Yes.
it down. That's right. That is the measurement of success, right? Can you memorize this?
Yes.
Write it down. Now you know. Now you understand that how to implement that, which is obviously not the case,
Yeah. Yeah.
as well. And in school, I think I've told you this before. I left school, so I never spent much time in school and got my first job at 16. And all of the things that have made me successful in my career, whether it's that curiosity, kind of basically the things that you described, even
Yeah.
when I'm working with my development team, my engineers, I'm always looking at how we can break this down and structure it, etc. I don't know how to code, but I'm working with them to build it out, right?
Yes, yes,
None of
yes,
that in school was rewarded. You know, that curiosity and was seen as, oh, Chris is distracted.
yes, yes,
Whereas I'm always questioning, but why do we do it this way?
yes, yes. Kristen, you're an amazing, you've been so successful and in interviewing people and talking to people, getting to interest because you're curious, right? That is that fundamental thing of you shines through in the conversations you have with everyone. And that is so important.
But what does that mean for people coming out of school and university into organizations? You know,
They're going to have to learn it along the
the hard
way.
way.
Just as you're saying, you didn't learn it at school, but you learned it. Life will teach and apprenticeships, and when they're in jobs and when they're going to do, they're going to learn. It is just that, it's not going to be the school knowledge that'll be the most handy, or that's where you end. That's where you start.
Hmm. Can you give me an example? I know I'm putting you on the spot right now of a customer that you have and a success story that you and the team are very proud of to really bring this to life for everyone listening.
Yeah, so we have a customer. I don't have permission to name them, but they're a communications and a gaming company. They decided that they need to do a lot of hiring in San Francisco versus where there are a lot of deep machine learning and other kinds of engineers, and they had the option of building a team in-house, hiring contract recruiters, other recruiters, and the other was, to partner with us. So when there is a surge in capacity, you suddenly need somebody, that is one of the situations, where we can be very helpful. And they decided to partner with us because the speed with which we could deliver, the broad spectrum outlook, the very broad reach outs that we could do to find the candidates, um, um, that is there. The so both the speed and the quality aspects, that we offered, they partnered with us, and we've been working very closely with them and delivering success. But this is also the place where I was telling you there is a lot of nuance to actually driving success, and it takes time and it doesn't happen overnight. And I was giving the example where if you're going outbound, you can't expect them to love the company. You have to sell the company.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
different.
yeah, and all of the rules that we need to be, being following there.
Hmm. Yeah, and for them, what was the key? I mean, of course, getting candidates, but when you reflected after, what was perhaps some of the challenges they faced early on in the partnership, and what were some of the things at the end that they were really proud of?
But the end is, they had certain hiring goals, and how we help them meet the hiring goals, with a quality bar is the success that you see. There was also a goal in the sense that are we looking broadly enough? There was a lot of things that you did inbound, and then when you go to a new place, then inbound is not good. Referrals are not working as well as they worked in the past places where we were because you're in a new area. You have the challenge that when you're in the Bay Area, you're
Everyone's
not.
fighting for the same.
Everyone is fighting, and there's so many amazing companies that are there, right?
Mm, yeah.
So it's a work in progress still, I would say, but that is how we do. For example, the other example, even I'll give with a much smaller. Madrona is a VCM coming to you from their offices today because they have a CEO summit going on, and they needed a specialized data scientist for figuring out who are the other companies they could be investing in, reaching out to, very unique skills. And we could find them, and they were, obviously confused. How do we find out? Nobody lists that on their profile. and we could figure out the best candidates in 2 to 3 weeks and make the hire in 6 weeks. And this was over the Thanksgiving holiday season, and a lot of other things were happening.
Mhm.
So that is where we can find unique people and deliver quickly.
What makes you unique to all of the other competitors out there?
I think what makes us unique is a few things. So one is you can't build such a system if all you have in some senses, here I go on LinkedIn, I source on LinkedIn. We have, 8 years of experience building a tool. We have 1 billion profiles. We integrate with this thing, all the ATSs. We have some of the best, search engines and talent insights and everything. And that forms the foundation of everything else. And the reason why all of the who's who in tech and defense and pharma and consulting are customers, because we have really optimized that. Okay. Then you say, okay, how do we search? And then, we started early on this whole agentic AI journey. And given the people in the company, our background is from Microsoft's and Meta's and
Yeah.
those, places. So we are deeply tech and we are doing, but it's not just tech, we are building the people side. If you say, what's the challenge? Being in the services business is a very different thing
Yeah.
that is there, and we are learning along the way.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Something you spoke to me about before, I want to touch on is you're talking about why the talent movement needs to be a board level and C-suite imperative. Why is that so important? Elaborate on that.
So we are broadly, known. So I'm seeing so many companies, and it is true that people are ones who make the company, right? People are the critical. The second thing I'm seeing throughout, because I talk to so many people, Chris, like you, is everybody's looking at AI talent. Everybody's saying, how do I redefine the talents? They have a vision. This is what I want to do. But all of those ideas and implementation of it comes from people. Accenture laid off 11,000 people a few days ago because they said, we need the right people. So it is all about having the right people in the company to accomplish the mission, vision, strategy, that the C-suite has decided to implement.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting those people, if you're not retaining those people, you're toast.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a really random question. It may sound stupid, so just bear with me. Could you ever see a future that you're sourcing AI talent for companies?
Yes. Okay. So the way to think about AI talent, we're talking to in the future, you'll be hiring people, but you'll also be hiring AI agents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then if you're hiring AI agents, the question is, how do you decide which of the AI agents? And in our case, there might be many companies offering recruiting agents, for example, right? That can partner with your team to deliver the results. And then you're going to have to select for my company's environment. What is the thing? The easier part becomes, unlike an individual, just like in Yelp, you have restaurant ratings, you can have agent ratings. Been there. Try to work with this agent, it worked really well. This one was buggy like hell. So I think there'll be reputation. So it is a little bit like product buying in some
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
But it could be also agents that have experience in certain ways.
Wow. It's kind of mind blowing to think that there may be a future that I'm interviewing for a role that an agent is interviewing for.
Absolutely. The screening process, is an initial interview with an AI agent. So the based on hiring manager, the AI agent asks you, tell me about a project that you did that require this, and you answer, and then it says, tell me more. What was your role? How did you have to collaborate? AI is totally capable of doing that today. And in fact, when I talked about the large numbers of AI screens, that is how the AI screens happen today. And they tell you a lot, okay, about the person. So then you say, should the human also come in and spend time?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the big differences, like you said, though, is those questions are going to be the same across everyone at
Yeah.
scale. You have consistency, you have the
Yeah.
data, something that we could only dream
Yes.
of
Yes.
doing before. The problem we're
Yeah.
going to have, Anoop, is that all of those AI agents, if you have 1,000, they're all going to reply to your next stage. So they're not going to forget. It's not just going to be 90. All 900 will reply. So we have to figure out what that looks like. When you talk about this topic, right, at conferences, events, or in your own circles, what's one thing that people aren't talking about enough, but they really should be?
Let me think about that. I think one thing I feel that people don't talk about enough is understanding the carefulness and the nuance of what succeeds in your organization. So if I'm going to go a little bit of the deep end, companies like Palantir, et cetera, succeed because they go deep into the company, understand their process. And then when you're putting AI agents, they say, how are we consistently delivering the results? What's the data security? What's the compliance? What is everything else before we go and see the results? So setting up the right expectations, setting up the right partnership, understanding this is going to take time, but it is essential. But it is essential to the eventual success,
Hmm.
okay? Because it's going to happen.
You can't. It's like trying to build a building without a foundation.
Yes, yes. So you have to do that foundational, you have to take those steps as a CHRO, to all of the CHROs and talent leaders, in your audience. My message is quite simple. This change is coming. This is going to happen. It is not so hard. Please take, steps and time to experiment with the new technology and the companies, that are coming up. That experimentation is low cost. If you look at, you have $200,000 for a loaded cost of a recruiter or whatever else you pay. So if you're spending $100,000 to experiment, you will learn so much in the context of your own company, not on somebody else's experience. Your company is unique and you can learn in the context. And then when the CEO comes knocking at your door to say, hey, Chris, what are you doing? About AI, we want to see. You can say, we tried. Here is the experiments. Here are the results. Here is how we're going to do it differently. Because this is going to happen, and learning has to be happening inside the organizations,
Mm,
burying your head in the sand
I love
is
that.
not, yeah.
I mean, that's quite a big shift for HR. And most of the organization, but I think especially HR, where in the past they've been very, we everything's planned to the T. There's a lot of guardrails around, less risk adverse, but we can't do that. We need to be, failing forward and creating an innovation hub within the function, that we have an understanding that we need to experiment.
Yes, yes, yes. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. Listen, before I let you go, where can people firstly reach out to you if they want to connect with you and say hi? Where's the best place? And then where can they
So,
learn more about the business?
so LinkedIn is a great place to me, and you can find me there and connect with me, and The other is just my email is anoop@seekout.com. So, you can reach out there. You can go to our website and register for a demo. But I am personally, because these are the early stages of all of this, I am more than willing personally to engage and, discuss our experiences and how they can successfully experiment and deploy.
Amazing. Well, listen, I appreciate you, Noob. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and I'm glad that we finally got to do the podcast together. And excited for what you and the team are doing. And I wish you all the best until we next speak.
Thank you so much, Chris. So wonderful to talk to you.
You too.